Hello and welcome to Kids Get Acquainted with the Internet at Girl Meets World video podcast. I'm Dan, and today I'm talking about my first reactions to Girl Meets Her Monster Season 3, Episode 16, I think. So, this was an interesting episode. This is like one of those ones where I definitely have to sit on it and to really decide exactly what I think. But my first impressions are definitely that it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I think it certainly tackled something very relatable for a lot of people. They joked about early on, this is the time where the rebellion starts, and with the rebellions come the clashing with the parents. And there were a lot of things that were refreshing about this episode. Keith, Caitlin, and I have talked a lot about the lack of punishments going on, and sort of we have talked about sort of the entitlement and the kids getting away with doing whatever they wanted. And so that is refreshing that they're actually dealing with it head on. I think that there was a lot of strong and interesting issues here. I appreciated how they sort of came at it from both points of view. That they did have Topanga be a little bit wrong too, that she didn't seem to understand or acknowledge or care about the things that mattered to her daughter, that it was a just coming from on high saying, you must do this, I'm not going to listen to you, and that they acknowledge there are some issues with that too, in addition to Riley's selfishness and entitledness and lack of respect. These are big issues and ones that I think I might be still, I don't know. I kind of almost feel too young to really know how I feel about this stuff. I feel like I'm still, as a 25-year-old, coming off of my teen angst years of really having a lot of issues with authority. I remember in high school, and Keith was definitely someone who felt this way too, of, respect should be earned by them giving respect to me too. And I do think that there's obviously some issues with that, because no matter what, with wisdom comes some level of, you should look up to them to some way. They know more than you do on most issues. Well, I don't know if I even agree with that, but they have experience, and and especially with your parents, that they did look out for you, they did take care of you, and there's definitely a reason for gratitude there. The problem with respect, though, that I've always struggled with is, if they don't care about you and they're just looking down on you and they aren't going to treat you like you have anything worth to say, then does that person really deserve respect? And I do think parents are fallible, and people in general, no matter what position of authority they're given or whatever, that they can make mistakes too, and so then you should be able to challenge them. But obviously there's the line there, and figuring out that line is something that I still feel like I'm struggling to figure out myself, about how much innate respect you get just by being the parent. But you definitely have to, the parents have to work on, acknowledging the kid has some level of their own point of view and trying to talk with them. But of course, there has to be a time where you put your foot down. And I think that whole balance is something that most people don't know, especially, I was lucky, and I feel like I relate to this episode because I had the good, positive family like the Matthews, and we did have clashes, but at the end of the day, both parties, felt bad and came back, and we found a way to reconcile. Not everybody's that lucky, and so I think that this episode is a really good episode for people with nice, wholesome families where their parents aren't awful people, or where things work out, and the parents are willing to admit their mistakes. But I know a lot of people who weren't that lucky, and so I don't know how I feel about the episode in that larger context. And I'm really interested to see what you guys think. Definitely let me know in the comments. How did you react to it? Does this relatable to you? Do you think that this was a well-handled tackling of these issues? I appreciate the multiple points of view. I know it's a TV show, and I know it's 22 minutes, and so these are big concepts that did feel like they had a pretty quick resolution, which isn't a huge issue. It does make me sad for the possibility of the show being near its end, though, because I feel like this would be a great first step into something that could be a little more ongoing. It definitely reminded me of some of the stuff that they did with Amy in Boy Meets World, where she did have issues with the kids, Topanga and Corey, thinking that they were ready for big relationship things, that that we had the thing with the Pittsburgh arc and with the marriage, and that it really does, on a different scale, remind me of those things where, I'm the parent, I know what's best for you, and that sort of push and pull. And so, maybe not in the same scale where we'd have another episode in the future with Topanga specifically about them clashing in this way, but a different issue that then Topanga comes into, and having that repeated back and forth, I think would be really interesting, and it would be great if the show got to do that more, and if this was an ongoing thing, and a mutual respect between them, caring and love, but a continued clashing, I think would also be great too. I do think this was definitely one of Topanga's stronger episodes, and I think that there was some solid drama and some solid comedy. I liked Augie quite a bit. He felt older than he's felt in a while, and he felt much more like the classic twerpy sidekick brother, looking for attention. I thought that was kind of fun. Corey was funny. I do think that there's always the back and forth with Corey where, yes, he's Corey and he's going to be ridiculous, but it is kind of upsetting when he doesn't have an opinion of his own. He's just kind of freaking out on the sidelines, as opposed to actually, he had a couple lines here and there where he was trying to steer his daughter in the right way, but mostly he doesn't have any authority going into this. I did like the moment near the end where he's like, you're Godzilla, to Topanga. I thought that was good. And then, of course, the most important thing is Red Planet Diaries, which is such a great callback from way back. I think it was Brother. And that was a really great, really great callback. I always loved that song that they sang. I actually made a t-shirt of Red Planet Diaries for Caitlin. I'll try to get her to put something up for us on Instagram or on a next video or whatever. So love Red Planet Diaries. I think that was fun. The whole binge thing was certainly relatable and fun. I think, it was just a solid episode. I don't think it's perfect, and I'm sure we'll, go through it point by point in the bigger audio podcast, but I definitely think it had some good points. I also really enjoyed the callback with Farkle, and how he always predicts the future and spoils things for people. I thought that was great, and I, of course, enjoyed all the boys being in the Red Planet Diaries too. Totally relate to that. And I think the other thing that did stand out to me as a little weird is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we've almost never seen Riley helping at the bakery, and we've seen her at the bakery a lot. So the fact that they pinned this whole idea around her needing help at the bakery felt odd, because it's just not something that they've set up, even though they could have easily done it many times before. And I wondered why they didn't just have it be, you need to babysit Augie. That is something they built up before, and she could, I guess it's potentially more dramatic because she's not paying attention to Augie, but, more dramatic might have been good for this episode to create a larger reason for, an argument. Similar to with Brother, they could have done a similar thing where she is walking the show instead of really paying attention to him. He doesn't care because he's older now and he wants to do his own thing, and then, he gets into some trouble and Topanga's really mad because Riley wasn't doing what she was told to do. Again, it's just little things, not a huge deal, but just something that did stick out to me as a little odd. Alright, let me know what you guys think. How would you interact with your parents? Do you see Topanga and your mother, or your mother and Topanga? Do you think it was really strong and dramatic and relatable, or did you think it was a little too cookie cutter? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to our podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at GMW Podcast, and look out for our full audio podcast on iTunes. Kids Get Acquainted with the Internet. It will hopefully be up Monday. Thank you, guys.